3-4 ounces.
Any other guesses? Huh?
10.
10 ounces?
I think that's what it is.
I'll tell you, 1.64 ounces. Just over an ounce and a half. It's a feather. And you know how much a golf club weighs? In pounds.
Say 2.
1 pound. 1 pound weight against a 1.5 ounce golf ball. You need to hit at it like it's sitting there like an iron ball. No, that's ridiculous. We wouldn't even think of doing that if it was a marshmallow sitting on the ground, right? Okay. So what you got to do is, what I was taught was how to change perception of what we're dealing with in order to change performance. We'll fall on my face that way. So it's counterbalancing us to keep us from falling over. And that's the biggest issue with people not even being able, even good athletes not being able to get to their left side. And then we exacerbate it by training that hit, we causing that injury, and then Daniel has to fix what y'all screwed up by focusing on a golf ball that weighs an ounce and a half. Remember that all a good shot is a good toss, similar to a medicine ball toss. Then you'll never have to figure out how to swing a golf club. You only have to figure out how creative you can be with that information. So toss it back to me. No, toss it. I want to turn sideways, toss it to me.
Oh, it's nice to see Daniel doing something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'll show you, because I've worked a couple of times with Daniel on the golf course, and we've improved him a lot, but he still has a couple of habits that we're talking about. One of the ones is he tosses like this. What's wrong with that?
That looks good to me.
He's our teacher. We never see that. He's about it.
Golf ball and chase it, so he was swinging this way. Okay, so I'm trying to get him to where now he swings this way. Now, which one looks more efficient, the first or the second? Okay, that's only because the difference is I'm not hitting at a golf ball and chasing it. I'm just going to my target and letting it come in behind me.
I'll say this too with the golf swing, form follows function. So a lot of times we analyze, or you see like millisecond pics of golfers in these positions, right? They look like they're reached out, or they look like they're here trying to attack the ball, right? Those are things that are happening because of the forces the club puts on them. It's not what actually goes on.
Because even though the club only weighs a pound, during the golf swing, it has about a 20-pound residual, or what is it, resistance weight. So a dynamic weight, okay? So it gets heavier, and so even though I'm right here going forward like this, centrifugal force makes it look like that, okay? But if you see me finish, then it looks like that because I'm only going to here, whereas someone that's actually trying to do this, they end up here.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody do that. Okay? Now, just take your left hand to your right hand. Don't reach, just make it comfortable. Okay? And then take your right hand to your left hand. There's a perfect golf swing in there, right in front of you. Okay? So you're not, when everybody's trying to get shoulder turn, hip turn, they're actually doing something that's out of sequence in their way their body functions. Not much, right? And if you look at the guys on tour, this is in slow motion, this is what their swings look like. How far have those shoulders and the hips turned? Not very far, have they? And then they go like this, and if you see it in slow motion when they do it, this is just them allowing everything to swivel with their hands. So it's not a forced shoulder and hip turn, it's a reactionary shoulder and hip turn. Whereas if I try to turn my hips and shoulders, now my hands are stuck behind me. Anybody ever get stuck behind themselves all the time? That's why. Okay. So I'm going to toss this with Daniel. I just want you to watch. Okay. Now toss it up here to me. Now, most people swing down here, right? Because they're swinging down along the ball line, chasing the ball. The pros all swing up to here. You know what the difference is? The difference is they're swinging toward their target, everybody else is swinging toward the ground. The natural movement of the elbows and the shoulders and everything happen, my hands will come slightly up here, and they'll come slightly up here. If I swing to there, if I try to swing down to here, I've now locked up that joint, especially the left arm. And you know the reason most people lock up this joint in their hip in the follow through? You know why? Because they're bracing to hit a 1.5 ounce golf ball. So they hit themselves. So they're literally like this. They're going to hit a golf ball. Makes no sense, does it? So you hold it up, you support the weight of the club in your fingers, and you make it light. You don't push down on it, which is what most people do. Because most people push down because they're going toward the ball. Their energy's toward the ball. And so then he shook my hand and he said, that's how you hold up blank golf club, and like you mean it. And I thought he was gonna break my hand. But he had very strong hands, very big forearms. All the ones of that era did, because, and they never worked out. I'm gonna set my hands up for a high cut, and then I'm just gonna let my body support that action. If I wanna hit a little low draw, I'm just gonna set my hands up for it, and then go right there. I'm not gonna think about all the details of it's gotta be back in my stance, it's gotta be up in my stance. My body's just naturally gonna react like, just if I have this medicine ball, and I decide I wanna throw it with a little bit of overspin to Daniel, I don't think about how, I just get in the position where I can do it, okay? And that's all you have to do with a golf club. So in other words, this club head is just along for the ride with what you're doing up here. So someone says, well, do you open the club face? No, I just turn my hands. Does that open the club face? It looks like it, but did I open it in my hands? No. Now, if I want an extreme shot, I'll open it and then I'll turn my hands if I want to slice more or hook more. But that's rare that I'm going to get into that, because these golf balls don't curve as much as they did back in my day, when I could take a 3-iron and hit it the distance of an 8-iron with a 50-yard slicer.
Wow.
So, like that, yeah, you're just thinking the target. You're connecting the dots, so you're creating a connection between the two, or a relationship between the two. So if I want to cut spin, I want it to feel like my hands are doing this, that'll create a cut spin on the golf ball. If I want to hit a draw, or I want to go low, I'm just going to feel my hands go right here, not out here, not down here, but right out here where I can balance at the end the relationship to the target out.
I'd just be happy if I could hit it straight consistently. I mean, and then I'd go from there, but like, if I could do that, then I'd be happy.
Well,
Because I'm not gonna, right now, I'm not gonna feel, if I feel,
you don't need to rotate your hands.
okay,
Okay, what people call a release. So there's a lot of fallacies or misinformation in what things look like and what actually made them happen. So if I just have my hands work together, see them working together, did they change at all? They didn't change at all. But yet it looks different here than it did here, right? Because it's a different spot in my body. Okay, so even if I finish here, if I turn and face, my hands are right back where they started in relationship to my body. So if I try to rotate or release a golf club, then where am I in relationship to my body? Well, there's a snap hook. Okay? So in other words, when I say dynamic, these work together dynamically. Look at how they look like they're doing nothing when they're actually the driving force. They're the stability of the swing. If I try to make the body the stability, and I'm flipping these all over the place to try to make up for it, then I'm dead. That's not the way the golf club is designed to be used.
Steve, you have
Here. One, I'm going to go inside on the backswing because I'm ready to go down. Okay, you see my body when I'm ready to go down, how it's kind of leaning left, and now it's going to fall backwards to keep me from falling over. And then I'm going to chase out that way to chase the golf ball, because my focus is out there, whereas the normal average golfer's focus is out there chasing the line of the golf ball. My focus is totally different. My focus is straight line from my hands to the target. So if I'm going straight back, straight through, I didn't have to manipulate anything. Now the golf club will do little things because it's built at an angle. So it's going to arc a little bit. But my hands actually aren't arcing much at all. They're arcing more this way because of the elbows, the natural motion of the elbows. Whereas if I tried to keep my arm straight, which straight left arm, anybody who ever tells you that, run as fast as you can from it. Because if you watch the great players, if you now watch how they're breaking it down into real slow motion, their arm's actually bent about like that halfway through their backswing. It's not straight. The guy that I taught that could do 100 of these. See, so the difference is, if I can hang my arm naturally and it's relatively straight, but I still have all the joint movement, that's just the flexibility of that person. Okay?
Why is it taught to keep it straight then?
Why is it taught to keep it straight? Because that's what they think they see on video. Because they're giving you a description of what it looks like, not what it feels like. Now, I'll probably get in trouble for this one, but all my best friends were club pros. I used to teach half the North Texas PGA section club pros, how to teach and with their own games. And when I was back in Dallas, and they did a study. This is probably 30 years ago. You're never going to have good rhythm. It's like if you walk out of balance, you're never going to have good rhythm even in your walking. So in other words, if you don't understand that it's a beginning to an ending, not a beginning to a middle to an ending, then you're never going to have good rhythm. The players who have great rhythm, like a Freddie Couples, one is hyper flexible. Okay, so he's like a noodle. Ernie Els, same thing. You can't teach that. But the guys that, like a Jordan Speed, he has good rhythm, but sometimes he kind of throws up the chicken wing left arm because he's trying to keep the left side engaged. If he just did this instead, he'd actually probably be the best player on the planet most of the time because of his creativity. He gets a little bit in his own way because of what he was taught as a kid. So it's always been a bit of a nemesis to him. That's why for 3 years he couldn't find the broadside of the barn, because he was searching for that perfect golf swing. And by the way, I've seen it with my brother who played the PGA Tour for 12 years. Gets out there, great player, junior golf, high school golf, college golf, amateur golf, and turned pro when he was 20 years old and made it on the tour in his second year. And he got out there after about 5 years, and I wasn't able to be with him all the time, so he started listening to the talking heads out there. Guess which way his game went? It didn't go in a good direction. Ben Crenshaw and I both learned putting from Jackie Putty. You know who Ben Crenshaw is, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I'll show you something. So this is my putter that I've had for 56 years. What's that?
Is that an armor?
That's an Arnold, made by Tommy Arnold, made by Wilson. And so it was based off of the original 8802, but they rounded it off a little bit more. You can actually see where I hit it in the sweet spot.
Yeah.
So anyway, he taught us both that putting is nothing but a pointing contest. He who points best puts best. And again, I'm going to reiterate what he said, and because it actually applies to all swings, it's happening so slow in the putting stroke that you can actually feel it where you can't in a full swing. So if I point there, ball goes there. If I point there, ball goes there. So I don't have to set up perfectly to a putt. I just have to understand where I want my hands to go and trust them to go there, and that's where the ball will go. So he said all putts are straight putts. And actually, y'all have probably heard, if you've ever listened to Faldo in the telecast, he uses a lot of stuff I taught him. So, or he did used to use a lot of stuff I taught him. And, but anyway, so it's just pointing contests. That's all golf is. So if you know where your hands are going and you're pointing there, so I'm pointing there, that's where the ball's going to go. The shape I'm pointing in is going to create the spin. Any other questions? The ball goes there. If I point there, the ball goes there. So I don't have to set up perfectly to a putt. I just have to understand where I want my hands to go and trust them to go there, and that's where the ball will go. So he said all putts are straight putts. And actually, y'all have probably heard, if you've ever listened to Faldo in the telecast, he uses a lot of stuff I taught him. So, or he did used to use a lot of stuff I taught him. And, but anyway, so it's just pointing contests. That's all golf is. So if you know where your hands are going and you're pointing there, I'm pointing there, that's where the ball's going to go. The shape I'm pointing in is going to create the spin. Any other questions? Well, that's because all I'm doing is making you aware of where your physical and mental bloodlines are and allowing you to solve those. Okay? Now, for some, it's the fear of missing a golf ball is the biggest one. Okay? What they don't realize is we have this innate awareness of where things are in space. It's just like if, you know, you take people and you ask them to sword fight like they play golf, they'd be going like this. Because they're afraid of what's at the end, which is the club head. If you don't care about the club head or the tip of the sword, then you can go like this. You can do whatever you want. And that's so it frees them up to be creative, which is what we want. Golf was meant as a creative sport, not as a mechanical sport. It's designed that way. So again, golf club was built for ease of use, the way our body works naturally, as long as our natural body is not interfering with that ability. Our mind wants to see things over here where we're going. It doesn't want to see the foot of the car. It wants to see the road ahead. Okay? So when I'm focused down here, my mind is stuck here and that's all I'm getting to. When I can take that out of focus, make it just background noise, then I can focus in on where I'm going. So that's all I do. I just make you aware of where you're stuck and make you aware of how to get unstuck. Now, some people are harder than others to get unstuck because they're so committed to hitting a golf ball. They're so afraid of it. You know, I don't care if I miss hit a shot. If I miss hit one, I go next. Because I know the next one I'll do pretty good. I mean, I hit bad shots all the time, even when I'm at my best. So do the best players in the world. If any of you watched tournaments over the last couple of weekends, you saw fluff chip shots. Some of the best players in the world at the top of the leaderboard. You saw them miss putts, putting off the green on some holes because they didn't recognize the speed of the green. You know, so it afflicts everybody. But the difference between them and the average person is they learn how to go next and they try to recover from the mistake. They don't make it worse by getting mad at themselves. So we want to let it naturally arc. So by trying to keep it square, again, you're raising the hands up, making the body back up. And now it's actually not square, it's actually wide open. His elbows, shoulders, the joints move. So this is a natural occurrence for that to happen. I can't stay down here. Because look at my body as soon as I try to stay down. Tightens up on the left side to keep me from falling over. But if I just allow my hands to come naturally up, they're actually just going, actually if you look, it's not my hand going up, it's just my elbow holding.
That means like maybe the starting position is a little bit back behind the ball and then that comes up, so putting the leaf or whatever rotations in front, maybe I position myself a little bit more in front.
His elbows, shoulders, the joints move. So this is a natural occurrence for that to happen. I can't stay down here. Because look at my body as soon as I try to stay down. Tightens up on the left side to keep me from falling over. But if I just allow my hands to come naturally up, they're actually just going, actually if you look, it's not my hand going up, Just my elbow folding.
So that means like maybe the starting position is a little bit back behind the ball, and then that comes up. So putting the leaf or whatever information in front, maybe I position myself a little bit more.
Everybody's gonna say, well, you're back in your stance, you're this, you're that. Well, I don't even know where my feet are. I just know my body's in a position to support my hand action. So in other words, it's a natural position. It's not an unnatural forced position based on what someone saw. It's my body saying, oh, I can do that from here, I can't do it from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So in other words, if you're trying to find positions, you're always going to be stuck in positions. If you're trying to find support mechanism for your hands, or support for your hands from the body, then you're going to be in the right place. May not look the same as somebody else, doesn't have to, because you're built different than somebody else. You know, and one of the things we didn't really talk about, I'll spend 2 minutes on it, is grip pressure points. Okay, so here's a normal grip for me. That's upward pressure. Okay, now if I want to draw it, I put a little forward pressure downward so I can draw it. Okay, if I want to fade it, then I put a little upward pressure that way. So I use my fingers and my hands like an instrument. I tune them to the different shots I want to make. Most people just grab it and they're done with it, and then they're trying to manipulate the shot with the club hand. I'm actually doing it from my different ways I hold it, pressure points and direction of energy. So we'll just call it direction of energy, so that when you redirect the energy, now that shot's easy. It's no longer hard. I don't have to manipulate it. I can just do it.
Does your path change?
Barely. I mean, okay, so again, pretend I've got a medicine ball. I want to hit a high fade. Did my path change much? I want to hit a low draw.
That's, I mean,
It's
like
still right here in front of me.
your path versus the draw versus the fade is going to be the same no matter what. You're not opening your stance or closing your stance.
Well,
You're just
okay, so
adjusting.
if you look at my body, I want to hit a fade. What did my body do? It tilted back to the right a little bit to create so I can go this way. And so everybody say that's open because the ball's going to end up over there. It's open to the ending target, but it's actually square to the beginning target.
Right.
Okay, so if I'm hitting a draw, my body's here. There's my beginning target. There's where the golf ball's going to end up. So yes, I'd be closed to the target, the eventual target, but not to my beginning target. So in other words, you always work off straight lines, and then you create spin or curve from there. Or when you're putting, you play slopes. So it's all putts are straight putts, and you let gravity take the ball whatever direction toward the hole. So you're just putting, so the straight point, so you're pointing to a line and a direction in putting, and letting gravity finish the putt off. Yes. Everybody's gonna say, well, you're back in your stance, you're this, you're that. Well, I don't even know where my feet are. I just know my body's in a position to support my hand action. So in other words, it's a natural position. It's not an unnatural forced position based on what someone saw. It's my body saying, oh, I can do that from here, I can't do it from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So in other words, if you're trying to find positions, you're always going to be stuck in positions. If you're trying to find support mechanism for your hands, or support for your hands from the body, then you're going to be in the right place. May not look the same as somebody else, doesn't have to, because you're built different than somebody else. You know, and one of the things we didn't really talk about, I'll spend 2 minutes on it, is grip pressure points. Okay, so here's a normal grip for me. That's upward pressure. Okay, now if I want to draw it, I put a little forward pressure downward so I can draw it. Okay, if I want to fade it, then I put a little upward pressure that way. So I use my fingers and my hands like an instrument. I tune them to the different shots I want to make. Most people just grab it and they're done with it, and then they're trying to manipulate the shot with the club hand. I'm actually doing it from my different ways I hold it, pressure points and direction of energy. So we'll just call it direction of energy, so that when you redirect the energy, now that shot's easy. It's no longer hard. I don't have to manipulate it. I can just do it.
Does your path change?
Barely. I mean, okay, so again, pretend I've got a medicine ball. I want to hit a high fade. Did my path change much? I want to hit a low draw.
That's, I mean,
It's
like
still
your,
right here in front of me.
your path versus the draw versus the fade is going to be the same no matter what. You're not opening your stance or closing your stance.
Well,
You're just
okay, so
adjusting
if you look at my body, I want to hit a fade. What did my body do? It tilted back to the right a little bit to create so I can go this way. And so everybody say that's open because the ball's going to end up over there. It's open to the ending target, but it's actually square to the beginning target.
Right.
Okay, so if I'm hitting a draw, my body's here. There's my beginning target. There's where the golf ball's going to end up. So yes, I'd be closed to the target, the eventual target, but not to my beginning target. So in other words, you always work off straight lines, and then you create spin or curve from there. Or when you're putting, you play slopes. So it's all putts are straight putts, and you let gravity take the ball whatever direction toward the hole. So you're just putting. So the straight point. So you're pointing to a line and a direction of putting, and letting gravity finish the putt off. Yes. A loosey-goosey, okay? You think of all the great swings over the eras like Ben Hogan, like Ernie Els, or like Annika Sorenstam, you know, they all have this fluidness to them because they don't have a lot of resistance from their body. It's when you resist from your body that you create the jerky look. So when I, like this, there's no way I'm gonna look smooth, right? But when I'm like this, still looks smooth all day long. All I did was I just let go of some of those tense muscles and let the hands drive the train. I let it be the engine. And women have to, because that's how they create power. They couldn't create power. Men can overpower a golf ball, and some of them have learned how to, but they're not consistent when they do it that way. And they usually end up, like Daniel says, they end up getting hurt. You see it in a lot of the top players. They're great for 2, 3, 4 years, and then their body starts breaking down. That's what happened to Tiger when he was working out too much and he went to the wrong instruction. Hank Haney, a la Hank Haney, and what's the other guy's name? I'll think of it in a minute. But Sean Foley, where they were teaching them technical. And Tiger even said afterward, he said, I had to get away from the technical to get back to where I could play again. And that's when he won another Masters. 3 years? I can sit there and throw it. And, you know, I've got the sensation of about the same centrifugal force of the golf swing. Did y'all learn something good today? And vision is where you're going, not what you're getting. So if you can remember those 3 keys, then you can find your best dynamic balance, you can find your best control of the club, and then you can find your vision that's over toward the target, not down.
It seems like